Tonight, bushfire crisis from Sydney to the south, the day New South Wales burned. There are over 100 fires alight right now, cutting off major roads and threatening homes. Underage arsonists add to the threat, setting a fire right in the heart of Sydney's west. The fire crisis across the border in Victoria has destroyed homes. Temperatures soared across the city, how Sydney-siders tried to keep cool and how long it will last.
This is 9 News with Peter Overton.
Good evening. This is a special edition of 9 News on the bushfire emergency across the state and the severe heatwave that's hit Sydney. This is the situation right now. 4 fires are out of control and threatening homes near Cooma, Bega, at Tarcutta near Wagga Wagga and at Deans Gap south of Nowra. Those blazes are among more than 130 fires burning across New South Wales. Around 40 of those are uncontained. In Sydney, a fire's broken out at Mount Druitt in a suspected arson attack. The temperature reached a peak of 42.5 degrees at Sydney Airport, and a total statewide fire ban will continue tomorrow. Our reporters are in the bushfire zones across the state and around Sydney, on the coast and in our west. Let's go first to Cooma, where a massive fire front has burnt out 2,000 hectares and kept fire crews on the run as they struggled to keep the flames from dozens of homes. Kerry Yaxley begins our coverage.
The spearhead of the heat-fuelled fire front thrust first into the state's southeast. Erupting east of Cooma, driven by strengthening winds, boiling up out of the rough bushland, then racing across farming paddocks.
It's getting worse as the days go on.
The sky a blur of smoke as a fleet of 6 helicopter water bombers tried to slow the wave of flames. The bush was already cooked, gum trees and grass dried to a crisp, exploding at the first spark.
This fire has already burnt through over 1,000 hectares of land at rapid pace, and these incredible winds are making it that much tougher for firefighters on the front line.
Fire chiefs flashed out an evacuation warning across the region. That was rapidly superseded by the speed of the blaze. These aerial shots giving some indication of the great expanse of the fire.
For the Yarrabin fire, originally it was about relocating or taking shelter. It is now too late to relocate in those areas.
There were fears families trying to reach safety would only be trapped on the hilly, twisting roads. Fire teams had their own problems, working their way down dirt tracks, trying to reach farmhouses under threat, and watching for spot fires sparked by flying embers. Any hopes the fire front might stall at the Numarella River soon evaporated, flames jumping the waterway, pushing on towards properties and small communities in the Crimean Valley. This farmer experienced the full fury and the power of the bushfire.
Because what I'm frightened of is that this will turn and come back.
And that's a real possibility. There are fears the southerly change will do little to curb the fire, merely making it swing around into areas so far untouched. Kerry Yaxley, 9 News.
Cameron Williams is live in Cooma tonight. Cameron, how do things stand as we go to air?
Pete, this fire, which is burning on a very wide front, is still totally out of control. Firemen are very, very concerned about it. In the words of one of them I spoke to just recently, he said this fire is twisting and turning and running up the hills like a scalded cat. And that is because although the temperature has dropped recently from the mid-40s down to the mid-30s and even lower as we speak, the wind has not dropped. It's still pushing through at about 85 kilometre an hour in gusts, and that makes this fire totally dangerous and totally beyond control. The bad news for residents in this area is that situation is likely to continue tomorrow. So as we stand here tonight, it is a very, very grave concern that is held for the people of Cooma. Pete?
Cameron, thank you. We'll see you for a current affairs straight after the news. Along the south coast from Jervis Bay almost to the Victorian border, the sky was studded with pillars of smoke from a string of big fires. For locals in the coastal communities and for thousands of holidaymakers, it's been a nerve-wracking and dangerous day.
Under siege, the towns that dot the state's far south coast. Homes threatened by a blaze that embedded itself in thick timber country, then pushed east. Powered by the wind that picked up speed as it poured down through the steep hills of the hinterland. The area is packed with holidaymakers in camping grounds and cottages.
Just take precautions, do the right thing.
It was here the heatwave first showed its teeth. The temperature topped 37 just after 9 this morning. 2 hours later it was 41 and kept climbing. The tiny town of Brogo, north of Bega, was the main battleground.
Well, we're just concerned it'd come back this way instead of going down the gully.
Volunteer firefighters, supplied by a string of water tankers, stood their ground. They were backed up by water bombing aircraft. It's suspected this fire was started by a farm vehicle, the superheated exhaust system believed to have ignited grass. A small incident, but the consequences were frightening.
With the smoke, we can't see very far, so it's a bit scary.
All along the coast south of Sydney, there were strict precautions to help reduce the risk to lives and property.
The park is closed today due to the catastrophic fire danger.
Total fire bans were in place and many locals made emergency plans.
Grab the kids, head to the beach and wait on the beach until we get some rescue.
The southern fires formed a patchwork thread along the coast. Sussex Inlet and Bendalong in danger mid-afternoon. Smoke slowing traffic on the Princes Highway and the road from Nowra to Braidwood. Tonight the danger remains intense. The southerly change expected to swing the fire towards areas that escaped the initial assault.
Let's go live to Matthew Snelson now, who's at Brogo. And Matt, as you said, the danger situation is intense.
That's right, Pete. Homes are still under threat here in Brogo by those two fierce fires that have been blazing away today. A southerly change is on the way, but that has the potential to change the direction of the fire and take it to a whole range of other properties that have so far been safe. There are about 10 truckloads of RFS crews now ready to relieve about 50 who have been on the ground fighting this fire for about 8 hours, and they all face a very busy night ahead, Pete.
Matthew, thank you. Properties at Tarcutta near Wagga Wagga are also under threat tonight. Jane Azzopardi joins us now on the phone from just outside the danger zone. Jane, a tense situation there.
Oh, Pete, it's been very tense for people in Tarcutta for most of this afternoon. For around 3 hours, they thought the entire town was under threat and people were huddled in the RSL club there. We've been in there. The town is okay. There are some properties on the fringe that have had their land singed, but the houses seem okay. And the threat has now moved further north to isolated properties to the north of Tarcutta. That's where firefighters are concentrating their water bombing and firefighting efforts now. A lot of the crews had to head here from Aura, which is where they were stationed last night, a big grass fire, 870 hectares at Wagga there. They were extremely worried that would flare up again today because the fire conditions around Wagga actually tipped off the scale. They were so bad. The temperatures were so high, the winds were up to 78 kilometres an hour, and they were really worried that fire could escape. And there was plenty more action across the Riverina as well. The town of Leeton had a grass fire, which thankfully has been brought under control by crews there. But all of these are going to be watched very closely overnight, because even if they say that they are under control, any ember could cause a whole range of new problems. Peter?
Reporter Jane Azzopardi, thank you. In this heat, there's nothing you could do that's much more evil than to light a fire deliberately. But it seems that's what's happened at Shalvey near Mount Druitt, where overstretched emergency teams today battled the stupidity of firebugs as well as the elements. 3 teenagers are in custody.
The worst fire conditions in years and authorities' worst fears materialise. A grass fire believed to be deliberately lit burned through bushland behind homes at Shalvey in Sydney's west. Aerial bombing required to bring it under control, police arresting 3 juveniles nearby. 2 of the accused youths were filmed by our camera, smiling and waving as they walked from the scene.
This type of activity won't be tolerated, and police and RFS will move quickly to not only put the fire out, but arrest those responsible for the fire.
In the oven-like conditions, another fire ignited in a small park beside Old Windsor Road at Winston Hills. The oppressive weather made firefighting so much harder. Heat stroke removing some personnel from the front line. Another collapsed at Mount Ku-ring-gai on fire lookout duties. A concerned premier among those visiting the Rural Fire Service Nerve Centre at Lidcombe as our entire emergency services stared down a horror day. From the south to the west to the north, every national park in town lay closed. These homes back right on to Lane Cove National Park, some readying themselves to stay, others cleared out before midday.
I was here for 94, so I know what it's like when it happens. It's like a war zone.
Not everyone heeds the warnings. A home burnt to the ground right here 19 years ago. The replacement's gutters lie clogged today.
The biggest enemy we have is complacency, particularly people in urban areas.
Dan Nolan, 9 News.
Reporter John O'Doherty has been speaking to locals in Mount Druitt. John, how are they feeling about that alleged arson attack?
Well, Pete, understandably, locals are furious that anyone would light a fire so close to their homes. They say every fire, any fire is terrible, but it's particularly bad when it is deliberately lit, and especially on a day like today when it really does have the potential to put their homes and lives at risk. But tonight, residents are at least taking some comfort knowing the police believe they have caught those responsible.
They obviously don't have their own houses and stuff like that. Like, most of them are kids that do it, and they just want to see what happens. So, but you know, people lose lives and everything else with fire.
Make you angry? For sure. If someone did it on purpose, yeah.
And Pete, police are taking a very strong stand and warning any would-be arsonists that with the latest forensic, thermal and aerial technology, if you light a fire, you will be caught.
Good on you, John. Thank you. Sydney was warned and the warning came true, the city enduring one of its hottest days on record. Lizzie Pearl is at Bondi Beach tonight, and Lizzie, even at 6 o'clock, the beach is still packed.
It's absolutely jam-packed, Pete, and the crowd seems to be building as we head into the evening rather than getting smaller on a day which saw a spike in the number of Sydney-siders being treated for heat stress. But at the moment, the water is around 20 degrees, which is very refreshing. Certainly saw the beaches right across Sydney, a very popular destination from early this morning.
The first peak at a Sydney scorcher. From daybreak, the sun was angry and didn't hold back on the bite all day.
Bloody hot.
Swimmers lapped early and runners hit the sand before the sun's worst. In Manly, it was ice cream for breakfast, a melting moment for Buffalo Bill facing off against the sun. At the zoo, animals got their teeth into some carrot ice blocks, milk flavoured for the lions, and a well-deserved hose down. Kids at Henley Daycare got the same treatment. Many were born during Sydney's tough water restrictions. Today, they loved it. By morning, Bondi was packed, sunscreen or sand covering up any way possible.
It's hot, but it's great. I don't mind it at all.
We have had a couple of rescues this morning, but it is pretty good conditions for swimming.
Extra ambulance crews across the city treated this woman at the Opera House who succumbed to heat exhaustion. At Richmond, it was 40 by midday, the airport like a desert. In Penrith, it was too hot for cricket, play cancelled under a searing sky.
It's certainly the first time we can ever recall something like this happening, so it's taken us all by surprise.
A dip in the Nepean River or a dunk at the Parramatta Pool. An air-conditioned flick at Cremorne, the perfect heatwave remedy.
Yes, this was the best place to be.
A scorching 41.3 degrees here in a car park at Chullora, and it's only 2:05. But let's just see what's happening inside this car. Well, it's been 6 minutes, so let's take a look. Wow, look at that. 52 degrees. Now that's an absolute oven for children and pets.
These dogs present collapsed. They're unable to breathe.
At 9 a.m, the temperature had already hit 27 degrees. By midday, a searing 37 degrees. At 3 p.m, 40 before a peak of 42.5 degrees. And it's not over. Tonight, the Sydney swelter is on. Lizzie Pearl, 9 News.
Well, Amber Sherlock joins me now in the studio, and Amber, the fire threat is far from over.
That's right, Pete. Now, what you're looking at now is a live image from the Rural Fire Service of all the fires burning in our state. It shows you just how widespread this danger is. Now, the red flames indicate emergency areas. The blue and yellow are not as critical, but still have countless communities on edge. And here in Sydney, it's certainly been sweltering. Penrith hit 42. Parramatta and Campbelltown topped 41. Mascot reached 42.5. The city, 42.3, Terry Hills 40.5. Now taking a look across the state, Broken Hill topped 44 degrees, Dubbo topped 39, Wagga Wagga and Bega baked at 41 degrees, Canberra 38, Newcastle 40 degrees, and we saw a top of 36 in Tamworth. Now it's not just extreme heat that fire crews were facing. Wind gusts of up to 105 kilometres an hour have been recorded in the Snowy Mountains, Southern Tablelands and the Illawarra region. And the heatwave isn't over just yet. It is still expected to be around 30 degrees at midnight tonight in Sydney. But I will tell you what's ahead a little later in the bulletin, Pete.
Amber, thank you. In the news ahead, we're live with the Fire Commissioner for the latest on the crisis. Also, the moment of despair as a family home goes up in flames. And traffic stopper, a truck goes up in flames on the M4.